Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing how much runway we still have in MicroStrategy. Coming out of the weekend here, we did see some news articles coming out there discussing about the possibility that Michael Saylor would have to be selling some of its Bitcoin to raise some cash, to pay debt holders and so forth. And with that news essentially being circulated, we did see, well, for starters, Sunday opens up, we see MicroStrategy kind of gap down, come back to the levels that we saw, what was it, Friday, it was like Thursday, Friday or so for Friday, Thanksgiving week. And then the cash session opened up and price really fell all the way down to 155, quite a bit lower than what it was previously the prior week. Now, by about 12:30, so about noontime, we had this massive V-shaped recovery, ended up recovering all of the losses during cash, almost filling in the gap, as you guys can see here. And then today we're looking at a move that's 9% higher in the day, where if we look at the daily here, we're essentially sitting, way higher than we were last week. And this is off the back of essentially very negative news that we saw yesterday over the weekend. And yesterday in particular, right before the close, so right about here, I did end up on StockTwits, for example. I ended up putting up a tweet here that I picked up some long positions in MicroStrategy that was 2x levered at around, when the price was around 170. What was it? Yeah, about 170. And right now, as we speak here, if I go back to Thinkorswim here, we can see we're trading at around 187. Okay. Now, with all that being said, let's dive a little deeper into what's going on with the price action here. So, without a doubt, a lot of negative news occurred overnight yesterday, right? Everybody's aware of this. Now, here's the thing. People came in right as the market opened up and they began shorting into the hole. They saw this negative news. They saw, quote unquote, as some people like to say, FUD regarding MicroStrategy and the fact that the price keeps drilling. They're going to be forced to sell their Bitcoin and so forth. So people thought, well, this is a no-brainer. It's going to keep selling off. Let me go short the stock. And essentially, we're getting these new shorts entering the position here, thinking that they're chasing a short thing because the stock is collapsing and it working momentarily before it being reversed on them. And this is very typical. Again, the market rarely rewards such obvious plays. Shorting the name right as you have this massive negative news coming in, after we already have a lot of, we've already sold off so much, very rarely can you just hop on some negative news and keep getting rewarded for it. So what we're seeing actually is these new shorts essentially being punished for hopping in so late into the hole here and shorting it. And that's creating the fuel for a squeeze here. Usually when we have essentially a low being broken, right, we're going to have all these longs that tried essentially setting up a long position here with a stop underneath, all of these longs being triggered out. We also have new shorts trying to enter on the break of a new low, plus all that negative news. That's what gave us that very quick impulsive move lower. That was a very aggressive move lower yesterday. But at the same time, when we have this reversal, guess what's happened? The exact same opposite things happen. We have all of these shorts that are trapped underneath the price. Some of them are getting stopped out as we speak, right? And some of them, and now you also have longs chasing the price up higher. Now, with this being said, the fact that MicroStrategy is rallying so hard off the back of news that can be very devastating for them. The fact that they closed off yesterday very nicely. And today they're moving extremely nice as well at 9% higher, even though, yes, Bitcoin is also trading at 8% higher for the day. All of this bodes well for it. So then we have to ask ourselves, how high can this go? Now, unfortunately, nobody can answer that. This could be a 2-day, 3-day bounce, and that is it, and maybe we turn lower. Even though we're bottoming right now on the back of negative news, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the all-time bottom for the next 52 weeks. It doesn't mean that whatsoever. What we can do, though, we can look at the option positioning and try and see if we can find some path, some explanation for where we can go from here. So if we look at the Vanna chart, now Vanna is a second order Greek. It's essentially how the delta changes for market makers when there are changes in volatility in the underlying. And things that I want to pay attention, obviously, is how the slope looks like as we go through the strike prices here. And things look pretty interesting as we continue to climb up higher here. Now the spot price does say 183, but we actually are trading closer to 187. Yeah, 187 right now. So actually we're somewhere in this territory here. Now, anyhow, so when I look at this, what sticks out is once we approach these mid 190s area right now, the hedging requirements for the market makers starts to drop off. And we're going to have market makers actually helping us move higher within this region here, all the way to 250 or so. So this to me looks like we have a fairly swift move to 250, as long as we don't see something like Bitcoin, completely fall off a cliff here. That as long as there's some momentum going on here and people are trying to chase this bottom here, it could very well be chased to 250. If we look at how the deltas are for the market makers, again, this is the perspective from the market makers, right? So market makers are currently long these deltas. If they're long deltas on puts, that means that they must have, these are puts that were purchased by people. So market makers are essentially short these puts. And if they're short these puts, that means they're carrying positive deltas against them. Now, when market makers are carrying positive deltas on their puts, it normally acts as a magnet. So the market makers can push price into those strike prices. So we can see there's massive positive deltas here at 200, 210, and going all the way up to 250, right? And this is what we're kind of looking at. And that's what that previous chart was kind of trying to depict to us in a way, that we do have all of these positive deltas above price. At the same time, on the call side, now again, you do have to kind of put both these together. If market makers have long deltas on their calls, that means these are calls that they themselves are actually long on. So if people write a covered call, for example, that means the market makers are long those calls and the customers are short those calls. So the market maker is carrying long deltas on those calls. So we can see here that right now, up to about 190, market makers are long these calls. And then we do get into this territory here where retail does have a bunch of calls around the 200 mark. That's why market makers are essentially short these deltas at these regions here on the call side, because there's a lot more calls purchased by customers as opposed to calls sold by customers in this area compared to that area. Now, again, I gave you a picture of the puts, gave you a picture of the call side. Obviously, the notional value will change, but more importantly, we also care about how the volatility affects it and the combination of the calls and the puts and the volatility, which is what the Vanna chart here kind of feeds us. Which, as I kind of said, as we kind of hit this 196, 198 mark, that's when it looks that we can take a very quick trip to 250. Now, as I say all of this, none of this is a sure thing, okay? But what I mean by this is I'll be paying attention to it. And if we do get a very swift move to this 250 level, maybe even 255, that is where I will, without a doubt, exit my position. Okay, I wouldn't even think twice about it. Even here at 200, we're probably gonna be fighting a little bit over there. But if we could hold above it, break above it, I think 250 might be in the cards. Again, it's a very big call to be making. I mean, going from 188 to 250, massive call. Take about 32% pop here. Okay, that's not an easy thing to do. Now, we can do things such as try to manage as correlations and see and use that to manage our risk. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we've known that Bitcoin for some time now has been lagging the markets. All right, if we look at Bitcoin here, well, this is Bitcoin futures here, but it's way off its all-time highs, right? Way off its all-time highs. If we look at, if we look at something, like SPX, for example, we can see that SPX is trading, fairly close to its all-time highs here, only down about 1.33% compared to Bitcoin, which is down, what would this be here? 27%, right? So massive lag occurring here. We had the markets bounce back after the fear of the AI bubble possibly popping, but Bitcoin hasn't really bounced much whatsoever. And MicroStrategy is kind of part of that, right? Now, MicroStrategy has kind of had it worse though, because it actually ended up peaking July 14, which puts it all the way back here, okay? So Bitcoin was here when MicroStrategy peaked, and then Bitcoin still ended up making a brand new high. And MicroStrategy did not. I mean, Bitcoin, what was this? We made this brand new high at October 6th. In October 6th, we were trading, look at this, we were trading all the way down here. October 6th, yeah, we were at 330 or so, 360 maybe on that day, 330, 360. So we were down here already from the all-time high, over 100, pretty much 100 points lower when Bitcoin was making its all-time high. So obviously MicroStrategy was suffering. Its correlation was way worse. It was underperforming compared to Bitcoin, and now we've had Bitcoin underperform compared to the rest of the market. Now, this is something I want to pay attention to, because right now as it stands, Bitcoin's up 8% on the day. That's big. MicroStrategy is up, almost 10% on the day. Obviously, MicroStrategy is always viewed as a levered position into Bitcoin. So right now, we can't really argue that there is really that much extra strength in MicroStrategy for the day, only because Bitcoin is really up a lot as well. But we do know that MicroStrategy has been underperforming Bitcoin for quite some time. So the fact that it's at least following it is a positive thing. But we obviously want to see continued outperformance on the subsequent days. So maybe Bitcoin is only up 1% tomorrow. If MicroStrategy could be up 5-6% tomorrow, that's great. That's what we want to see. On the other hand, imagine this. Imagine if tomorrow comes about, Bitcoin's up another 4%. MicroStrategy goes up 4% also, hits $200. And then by the close, hits 192. And Bitcoin's still up 5% on that day. Well, guess what? We're getting back to the underperformance again. We should be just continuously outperforming Bitcoin right now as we're bottoming out. So if we again see the underperformance, that's when I might take some gains in my position. That's what I'll be watching. So even though my target might be 250, now keep in mind too, that as I showed you these option positionings here and how the Vanna chart looks like, this obviously changes every minute, right? People are buying calls, people are buying puts and so forth. All of this is changing, right? So the picture might look different a few days from now. So even though right now, from what I can see, 250, 255, it seems like a mark that we can swiftly move towards, that can change. And even if I have that in mind, if I see that MicroStrategy is not acting as it should be at that 200 mark, I'll probably exit the position then and there. But that's kind of my take on MicroStrategy. We'll see what's going to happen. It's obviously a super volatile week for it. I think it getting back to 250 would be a crazy move. Now, what it does after that, I've got no clue. I also have very little opinion about the future of MicroStrategy. So this is just simply seen as a swing trading position. And I'm kind of getting out there by putting a pretty high target out for the time being. And I do expect this to kind of come in quickly if it does come in. But if you did enjoy this video, if you want to see more videos such as this one, make sure you leave a like for this video and subscribe for more content. Other than that, thank you so much for watching.